This is our infant classroom, and you just can't go by without looking at the.
We're here to talk about something that truly shapes the future of our city, and that's early childhood education.
All the curriculum is active and excite children about problem solving and learning.
Today, what we were able to witness is the greatness of Gary and the greatness of Head Start coming together.
We know that the success of our children directly influences the success of our city.
In order to create big projects and deliver for Northwest Indiana, we have to have and must have an educational workforce to be able to fill those jobs.
We're laying a foundation for stronger families, a stronger economy, and a stronger Gary, Indiana for generations to come. This isn't just about education. It's about building a stronger community. When we invest in our children, we invest in our community.
Those students who have that early investment or intervention have a greater outcomes to be successful.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're ready to start if you are. Good morning. I welcome you to the City of Gary Board of Public Works and Safety meeting for April 30th, 2025. I'd like to call this meeting to order. May we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In order to confirm that we have a legal meeting, we will do roll call to confirm quorum.
Member Green, Member Allen,
Present.
Secretary Morgan,
Present.
Vice President Dumas,
Present.
President Suggs.
Present.
Member Green. Mr. President, we have 5 present and 0 absent.
With 5 present, we have quorum, we have a legal meeting. Item number 3 on our agenda, minutes from previous meeting of April 23rd. May I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Minutes for April 23rd, 2025 have been approved. Item number 4 on our agenda, claims.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have before us claims to be paid on May 2nd. General fund is $97,334.44. For special revenues, we have local roads and streets, Park Department, Health and Human Services, vehicle auction, community development, law enforcement training, opiate grant, warming and cooling, media fund, COPS technology grant, workers' comp and unemployment, $347,981.54. Seated public works, public safety income tax and market park, $78,301.57. Totals to be claimed, to be paid is $523,617.55.
Thank you. May I have a motion to pay claims effective May 2nd, 2025? It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, may we have roll call for approval, please?
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Allen?
Yes.
Secretary Morgan?
Yes.
Vice President Dumas? Yes. President Suggs?
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 5 yes, 0 no.
With a vote of 5 yes and 0 against, the motion carries.
We also have before us ratification of payroll, $2,584,489.08.
May I have a motion to pay ratification of payroll?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing no discussion, may we have roll call for approval, please?
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Allen?
Yes.
Secretary Morgan?
Yes.
Vice President Dumas? Yes. President Suggs?
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 0 no.
With a vote of 5 yes and 0 against, the motion carries.
That concludes claims.
Thank you. Let's move on to item number 5 on our agenda, correspondence and agreements.
Received the bill received for comprehensive planning services for community development. Please be advised that JQuad, that's JPUAD Planning Group LLC, was the sole contractor that bid on this RFP. Accordingly, we are recommending that this contract be awarded the bid for the comprehensive planning services for community development in the amount of $35,870. So with that, I move that we award the bid for comprehensive planning services to JQuad Planning Group LLC in the amount of $35,870.
There's a motion on the floor. May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we approve the bid for JQuad Planning Group LLC in the amount of $35,870. Any discussion on this motion? Any clarification from community development?
Director Reed, just no discussion, and their response met the terms of the RFQ. Thank you, ma'am.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, may we have roll call?
Member Green? Yes. Member Allen?
Yes.
Secretary Morgan?
Yes.
Vice President Dumas? Yes. President Suggs?
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 0 no.
With a vote of 5 yes and 0 against, the motion carries for payment of claim for contract for JQuad Planning Group LLC in the amount of $35,870. Thank you.
Mr. President, we have correspondence from the engineering department. First item is change order for Reith and Riley. We have a change order amount of $102,758. This is to remove and replace an additional, can't speak today, 2 inches of asphalt for 13th Avenue, Green Street and Green Place within the Etna neighborhood. The original contract price is $600,000. The increase is again $102,758, bringing the new contract price to $702,758. With all that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we approve change order 1 with Reith and Riley.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve change order for Reith Riley Construction. The amount of the increase is $102,788, making a total bid of $702,758. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing no discussion, may we have roll call for approval, please?
Member Green. Member Allen.
Yes.
Secretary Morgan.
Yes.
Vice President Dumas.
Yes.
President Suggs.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 0 no.
With a vote of 5 yes and 0 against, the increase for the Riley contract has been approved.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that we table the professional service contract with VSI, let me see, VSI LTD. I'm sorry.
There's a motion on the floor. May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion on this motion?
None.
Hearing no discussion, may we have a roll call for approval?
Member Green.
Yes.
Member Allen.
Yes.
Secretary Morgan.
Yes.
Vice President Dumas.
Yes.
President Suggs.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 0 no.
With a vote of 5 yes and 0 against, the contract for VSI LLC has been tabled.
LTD. LTD.
You said LLC.
Did I say LLC?
Yes.
No, he said LTD.
But that concludes correspondence from the engineer department.
It really does.
Next, Mr. President, we have correspondence from the law department. First, we have two settlements. So the first is related to incident with the Gary Police Department, which was they filed suit against the city in cause number 223-CB00350.
I'm sorry to turn on the mic. And the settlement is an amount not to exceed $35,000. This resolution authorizes the law department to get the documents fully executed and make sure the payment is made to the plaintiff in this matter, whose name is David Elliott. So with that, I move that we approve the settlement agreement with David Elliott, the amount of $35,000 to resolve this case.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and properly second that we approve a settlement for cause 2:23-CV00350 by David Elliott in an amount not to exceed $35,000. Any discussion on this matter?
Just for clarification, the alleged file suit and agreement was in what year?
So the incident happened in 2022?
Thank you. That's it.
Okay.
Any additional discussion? May we have roll call for approval, please?
Member Green.
Yes.
Member Allen.
Yes.
Secretary Morgan.
Yes.
Vice President Dumas.
Yes.
President Suggs.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 0 no.
With a vote of 5 yes and 0 against, the resolution for the payment of a settlement of a suit involving number 2:23-CV00350 representing David Elliott has been settled.
All right, next, Mr. President, we have another settlement agreement involving the Gary Police Department that dates back to an incident that happened on December 1st, 2022. This is cause number 2:23-CV-00304. The plaintiff is Clezel Harris, and this settlement is an amount of $15,000 in full and final settlement of this litigation. So with that, I move that we approve the settlement agreement and authorize the law department to fully execute the settlement agreement and make sure the settlement amount is paid. But I move that we approve it in the amount of $15,000 to Mr. Clezel Harris.
A motion to approve the settlement in amount not to exceed $15,000 for case 223-CV00304 representing Clezel Harris. May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing no discussion, may we have roll call for approval, please?
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Allen?
Yes.
Secretary Morgan?
Yes.
Vice President Dumas?
Yes.
President Suggs?
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 0 no.
With a vote of 5 yes and 0 against, the suit by Mr. Cleazell Harris has been approved.
Next, Mr. President, we have a contract for professional services with Tierra Williams. This is in relation to our Love Your Block grant. Ms. Williams will oversee the implementation of the Love Your Block grant, including providing project management activities and tracking project metrics to measure impacts and outcomes, which are all more particularly described in Exhibit A. This contract will begins now and will end December 1st, 2025. The not to exceed amount is $29,308.12 that are going to be payable in equal biweekly installments. She's got to invoice the city on a timely basis, and then we'll pay pursuant to those invoices. So with that, I move that we approve the contract for professional services with Ms. Sierra Williams to oversee the Love Your Block grant program in the amount of $29,308.12.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the Love Your Block program representing Ms. Tierra Williams, contract for professional services not to exceed $29,308.12. May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion on this? Hearing no discussion, may we have roll call for approval, please?
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Allen?
Yes.
Secretary Morgan?
Yes.
Vice President Dumas? President Suggs?
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 0 no.
With a vote of 5 yes and 0 against, the contract for professional services for Ms. Tierra Harris has been approved. Tierra Williams, I'm sorry, has been approved.
Next, Mr. President, we have a contract to pay invoices for professional services with the Arch Group. So Arch Group had previously been contracted to provide planning related services to the city, and the city had a need for additional work from them, and so they were authorized to expend another $13,765 pursuant to their original contract, but because that exceeded the limit on that contract, we've got to do this, which essentially is an extension of the 2024 contract. So, and they actually did provide the services and invoices. So with that, I move that we approve this contract to pay pass-through invoices for professional services with the Arch Group in the amount of $13,765.
There's a motion on the floor to pay past due contract for the Arch Group in the amount of $13,765. May I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Been moved and properly second. Any discussion? I just want to say for the record that I'm glad to see this settlement, this payment take place, and really appreciative to the Arch Group for their support during that time period, even though it extended the amount of the contract. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, may we have roll call for approval?
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Allen?
Yes.
Secretary Morgan?
Yes.
Vice President Dumas?
Yes.
President Suggs?
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 0 no.
With a vote of 5 yes and 0 against, the contract has been approved. Payment.
Next, Mr. President, we have a contract for professional services with TGI Risk Services, LLC. This contractor is to provide employment background checks for firefighter applicants for the city of Gary. And so, again, they're performing the 2025 firefighter background checks at the rate of $325 per background check for an amount not to exceed $14,300. This is a very necessary service as we've had record numbers of applicants in recent months. And, we're very happy that people are interested in joining the City of Gary Fire Department. So with that, I move that we ratify this contract for professional services with TGI Risk Group for an amount not to exceed $14,300.
There's a motion on the floor to approve ratification of professional service contract with TIG Risk Services LLC, and the amount not to exceed $14,000.
$14,300.
$14,300. May I have a motion?
So you need a second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion on this motion?
Yes, could we amend the motion to include pending the completion of the QC 40? And the signature. The commissioner actually signed, and I'm not sure the commissioner can sign. I think it has to be Angela.
This is for fire. It's not Angela. Is Angela?
She's a commission administrative assistant.
Administrative assistant.
But normally we don't have the commissioners to sign.
Yeah, they should sign it. So I'm gonna second your amendment, your motion to amend the contract.
Is amendment to the contract that's been moved and properly
So I had a motion, which was seconded, and then
she amended it.
Salida made it, amended the motion, and I seconded her amendment, so I think we need 2 votes. And I'm sorry I created confusion.
So the first vote will be to approve the contract. And then
Yeah, and
we'll
then
vote
the
to
second
amend.
will be the vote to amend, because I did it in the most clumsy way.
It wasn't just stand
Okay,
up.
how about that? I withdraw my motion to accept the contract as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye. Now,
State the whole thing pending the QC.
I move that we approve the contract pending the QC 40.
second.
Motion on the floor and been properly second. Any questions? I have one.
Yes, sir.
So this is a contract in the amount of $14,300.
Yep.
We had record number of applicants last year for fire. This contract is only for 44 contracts, 44
Background check.
background checks.
Correct.
So do we think we have the capacity to take care of the full need?
No, so we don't do background checks on all
Unless there's a
250.
role.
Correct. So we only do on the 44 vacancies, or I believe they have a little bit under 40 vacancies.
Okay.
And what they're doing is that knowing that some of them don't pass the extensive background check. Also, this company does a more extensive one than the HR does in regards to just criminal and checking references. They'll dig into talking to some of their partners, their peers, previous employers, professors. So they go and actually interview those individuals. So these 44 are just based on the capacity of what we can actually hire. Don't need to take somebody through if we're not going to go for it.
So just to clarify, so applicants have had to go through and pass through a whole bunch of other screening processes and like done the physical
And pass the written.
before they get to this point. So
Correct.
I guess we'll see if we get toward the end of the year and need more background checks.
Well, I appreciate the discussion and I feel comfortable now voting. May we have roll call?
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Allen?
Yes.
Secretary Morgan?
Yes.
Vice President Dumas?
Yes.
President Suggs?
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 0 no.
With a vote of 5 yes and 0 against, the professional service contract has been approved.
Next, Mr. President, we have a first amendment to a grant funding agreement with For the Love of Arts Incorporated, who's the contractor here. The original contract, which was for a term beginning January 1st, 2025 and ending December 31st, 2025, incorrectly stated that the funds for the grant were coming from ARPA funding, but it turns out that the funds for the grant, the exhibits show what fund is coming from. Give me a second.
5,000 from ARPA and 20,000.
Opiate funding?
Okay. All right, so instead of coming from ARPA, it'll come 5,000 from ARPA and the rest from opioid funding. So this amendment states that any previous exhibits that were attached to the original contract are stricken and replaced by the exhibits attached hereto, which accurately reflect the $5,000 of the funding is coming from City ARPA Fund 2487-43110-2103, and $20,000 of funding for this grant comes from the city's opioid funding account, which I won't read into the record. But with that, I move that we approve this first amendment to the grant funding agreement with For the Love of Arts to correct the funding sources.
Motion on the floor to approve the first amendment to the grant funding for the Love of Arts. May I have a second?
Second.
It's a motion on the floor that has been moved and properly second. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing no discussion, may we have roll call for approval?
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Allen?
Yes.
Secretary Morgan?
Yes.
Vice President Dumas?
Yes.
President Suggs?
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 0 no.
With a vote of 5 yes and 0 against, the amended grant funding for the Love of Arts, Inc. has been approved.
Next, Mr. President, we have an amendment to a grant funding agreement with Edgewater Health. It's similar to the previous one where the original contract incorrectly stated the funds for the grant were coming from ARPA. So this amendment states that any previous exhibits that were attached to the original contract are stricken and replaced by the exhibits attached hereto, which accurately reflect that the funding is coming from the city's opioid funding account. So with that, I move that we approve this first amendment to grant funding agreement for Edgewater Health to reflect the correct funding source.
So motion on the floor to amend the grant funding for Edgewater Health in the amount of not to exceed $25,000. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on this matter? Hearing no discussion, may we have roll call for approval?
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Allen?
Yes.
Secretary Morgan?
Yes.
Vice President Dumas?
Yes.
President Suggs?
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 0 no.
With a vote of 5 yes and 0 against, the amended funding agreement, grant funding agreement has been approved.
Next, Mr. President, we have a funding agreement with Gary Harm Reduction Corporation, which is an Indiana nonprofit that's located at 5610 West Ridge Road in Gary. Their scope of services are to offer services for specialized addiction, substance abuse, and opioid prevention and intervention services to the residents of the city of Gary. The grant amount is $25,000. The funding source is huh? Okay. I still don't know what that means.
That one page left.
$25,000, but I was just trying to get down to. I know, it's opioid. Okay, so it's paid from the opioid settlement amount. Yeah, so I make the motion the second thing.
$25,000.
Come up, but so I move that we approve the funding agreement in the amount of $25,000 to be paid out of the opioid settlement account.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the grant funding for Gary Harm Reduction Corp. Funding coming out of the opioid grant. Is there a second?
Second.
May we have discussion on this matter?
Yes. So
Thank
gotta
you.
introduce
Good
yourself.
morning. Veronica Collins, the Gary Health Department Health Executive Director. So that amount's supposed to be $20,000. It's kind of like the first one that we had. We amending the amount for $20,000 and $5,000. $5,000 goes to ARPA and $20,000 goes to opiate. That's what it should have said.
So the grand total of the grant is still $25,000, but it's just broken up.
Yes, I just want to make sure that we were clear before we voted on it.
So say it again, 5,000 is
5,000 is the ARPA, because originally we put it all in the 25,000 into ARPA. Then we noted that it was a mistake, so we wanted to correct it. So 5,000 to ARPA and 20,000 to the opiate. That's what we're amending. So I just want to make sure.
So opiate should be the 2257.
Opiates should be in 2257, yeah, correct.
That one's not attached. So
20,000.
We'll need the QC 40 for that.
Oh, it's not in there.
2487 was attached, but not the 2257.
Okay, okay.
So how about I withdraw my motion and then you make the motion so we have the funding sources correct?
Okay.
So I withdraw my motion and Salita's gonna do a corrected motion.
So floor is open for a motion.
Question? I'm thinking that we just, and correct me if I'm wrong, we just need to redo the agreement because the agreement doesn't indicate anything about an amendment. And it's an amendment to the original agreement to change the original
To change the actual
funding sources.
funding source and amount.
Yes.
How time sensitive is this?
Say that.
How time sensitive is it? If we,
The quicker, yeah, the quicker the better.
okay. I think, Mr. President, what we should do is approve it contingent on us getting a corrected
Funding source
and corrected
Itemization.
document that reflects.
and QC documentation.
Okay. Marco loves this because it creates more work for him.
No, you know what? I apologize, everybody. I'm looking at what I sent, and I attached the wrong
Form.
I did an amendment. I did 3 amendments, right? And when I attached it, I attached Gary Harm, the original contract, without attaching the amendment. So I can run down real quick. If you guys finish everything else, I'll bring that right back up.
Okay, that'd be great.
The right one, if that's okay.
You want to table?
And it
Well-
shows the
For a
breakdown in that amendment?
I think so, because that's what you sent me, it's a 20, yeah.
Yeah.
Where,
It would be just like the other two, exactly.
It'll be a second.
okay, okay,
I'll run it.
So we don't have to table, I guess we can just hop over it.
yeah.
You come back to it.
Oh, you got something to say now?
He, you know, he wants to sit in your chair.
Excuse me.
Mr. President, we're gonna hop over that as an official thing and go to the grant funding agreement for the Crisis Center Incorporated, which is located at 101 North Montgomery Street in Gary. This is to fund certain organizations that provide services in the area of mental health to the residents of Gary. The allocation for this grant is $62,000.
In addition to what we already given? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Are you good?
I'll take your document.
No, I mean,
Go ahead, finish and I'll ask my questions.
all right, so I move that we approve this grant funding agreement with the Crisis Center Incorporated for $62,000 to provide mental health services for Gary residents.
So the motion on the floor for approval of the funding, grant funding for the Crisis Center, Inc. in Gary, Indiana. May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion on this motion?
Yes, Mr. President, I believe this board, again, I have to object as I served on the board a couple of years ago, although it's been advised it's no longer a conflict of interest because it's been greater than a year. I still abstain, but I do believe this board did just approve ESG funding from community development in the tune of about $150,000. So for the Crisis Center. So I just want to ensure that as in making this decision to fund them, again, I know the work is necessary, that there's no other mental health programs that exist out there that also need the support, because the city, again, gave them, I know it was emergency shelter funding for youth, but it also encompassed their mental health support and services. Do you want to get to
Any discussion on this matter?
So good morning. My name is Shakara Gunn. I'm the Behavior Health Manager. So for this program, it is a new program that they're doing, the Grief Initiative, which focuses on families and individuals who have experienced a traumatic loss, whether that be suicide or homicide, and they were asking for funding for that program that they're implementing.
How are families referred to them? Like, is it through the schools, through the Gary Police Department, or?
So through the schools, they also want to do kind of pop-ups within the schools, within the communities at different resource fairs to kind of put that information out there, and they would get the referrals that way through kind of boots on the ground, looking at the newspapers, hearing things that happen, and then reach out to the families that way.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, may we have a roll call for approval, please?
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Allen?
Yes.
Secretary Morgan?
Yes.
Vice President Dumas?
Abstain.
President Suggs?
Yes.
Mr. President, there are 4 yeses, 1 abstention.
With a vote of 4 yes and 1 abstention, the motion carries.
Okay. Mr. President, next we have a grant funding agreement with Edgewater. Yeah, another with Edgewater for specialized addiction, substance use and prevention intervention services to the residents of Gary. The amount of this grant is $90,933. So with that, I move that we approve this, and then I have questions when we get to discussion.
There's a motion on the floor to approve a grant funding of Edgewater Health, 1100 West 6th Avenue in Gary, Indiana. May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion on this motion?
If Director Collins can come up and explain how this is different than the other contracts, especially the Edgewater contracts.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, this one right here, that's the first one that we amended, that was for the opiate campaign. So that was from a different pot of money. This one are for counselors to assist with the mental health.
Okay, so, and they don't overlap, it's
No,
not
not at all.
duplication of services?
Not at all. You want to get more detail?
Well, I do. So I do. So then I also know that they also though receive state funding already for the same set of counselors. So how is this money different from that money? Because they're all the funds out of DMHA.
It is, but we decided to open it up to them, other people that was receiving the funding. And so Edgewater we was informed to open it up to Edgewater so they can apply.
Okay.
So
But they got $3 million.
$6 million.
$6 million for their funding. Okay.
They did.
I'd like to get some data on the number of people served. I know, we can't get details about individual patients' outcomes.
Okay.
But just to make sure that, this grant money, especially the agencies who get multiple grants from the city,
Okay.
is being used effectively.
Okay.
Because there certainly is a need in the community. And then, this is not exactly on topic, but from a discussion we had a couple months back, I'm, concerned with things like mobile mental health being fully implemented and being there when people need it.
Understood.
So just want to make sure that, this is somebody's tax dollars, whether
Okay.
it's, money we've got from ARPA or wherever.
Okay.
We just want to make sure that they use it effectively.
Understood.
So can we get a summary, maybe in the next couple of weeks, of, how many people have been impacted already by grants we maybe gave last year? How many people have been impacted by the grants we're giving now? And start from the organizations who get the most, which I think Edgewater will probably be at the top of that list, and work on down. Do you have any kind of?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you bring up a really strong point. My concern is that we're already funding Edgewater in other capacities to fill gaps. And I believe, we understand the essential need of filling gaps, but also too, they received a substantial grant for the state. Now, I agree that we shouldn't add services that would complicate or overlap on top of them to make it confusing for the public. So I agree that we shouldn't necessarily do it, but is this the most effective way of using that funding? And I can't say I agree at this time that it is. We're talking, again, they received a $6 million grant for mobile mental health, for mental health services for Geary community, and in whatever territory they expand to. So right now, even attending some of their meetings, I believe Chief Cannon helps lead those meetings with the community. We're not seeing the gaps in which that people can achieve the services. So if that was a case, and we said that these dollars were going to have the two that will work midnights that will help fill the gap, perfect, makes sense. And let's go forward. If we have the dollars, we want to get it to the people who are serving in our community and the businesses serving in our community. But in this particular case, what gap are we filling with giving these dollars? So
I would,
So-
go ahead.
Before you leave, I just need some clarification. Are these services provided for Gary residents only? Because I know not all communities have an Edgewater in their community.
Right. So the services would be,
hit the button, I'm sorry.
It's already.
Oh, that's all. Push it down. Yeah, there you go.
okay. So the services would be, because that was a question that I asked, it would be at Edgewater. So if you were from another community, you would have to come to Edgewater for those services. The substance abuse and the addictions counselors would be for youth, which is a little different because there is a huge disparity in mental health services, specifically addiction services for youth. So the money that they ask for is to hire that very kind of specific niche of addiction services for youth, but I do understand the concerns.
And also, so Edgewater does serve, I know that they serve other people from other communities. How would you differentiate what gets funded by City of Gary grants versus if somebody comes from, say, Highland or something, and they're getting treated there? Like, what is your building so sophisticated that you would know, okay, this counselor doesn't bill this grant for that service, it bills a state grant?
That's a good question that I don't have the answer to. I can try to figure out how I would put that in their deliverables as something that they would have to show in terms of where the demographic is coming from. I know when I talked to the director of communications, I believe is her title, she talked about going to the schools and kind of receiving the referrals that way. So from what I understood, it sounded like it would be more school referral based, but I can actually put that into their deliverable report where they have to break it down in terms of, hey, where are your referrals coming from? Who are you servicing in what cities and areas?
I would feel more comfortable if we hold off on this. Like if we vote right now, I don't know if it would pass, to be honest. So I'm gonna change my motion to tabling it until we get that reassurance about how it's gonna be billed to make sure it's serving Gary residents. Number one. Then number two, get a summary of how many people are served by each of these grants from Edgewater. And Edgewater at the top of the list. Other agencies who've got grants from the city, we need the same information. And so we need numbers on how many people are being served, and then kind of a narrative on how they're effectively and efficiently implementing all this grant money they've got from the city.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I think you bring up a good point. Well, I think you bring up a good point too. The piece that you brought up in regards to the time slots, I think that was a strong emphasis, is that we know we have a gap in evening and midnight type of pieces. I'm hoping that the crisis center is able to provide that with their support, but somehow, some way, a lot of times, or at least from what I'm seeing, again, it's no anecdotal data, but we're getting most of our calls of suicidal attempts and things of that sort of in evenings. It's not happening at school. Now we can catch it at school. I mean, talking to them, but it's in the evenings when they're alone. So who is able to respond to that? Can they fill that gap, or any of the other providers fill that gap time frame?
And I also think that we are conflating the two, because when I talked to them, that was kind of the same question that I had, that they were going to use that funding for the mobile mental health crisis. And she said that that's funded. They don't need it for that. They wanted it for the addictions.
Yeah, but the community needs the services in those hours. People don't have a mental health crisis when it's convenient for somebody. They have it at midnight. They have it at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I think
So-
your ask though of the group is to verify numbers served.
Yep.
That will verify whether or not they, even though they have something being paid now, maybe there's still a need for additional if those numbers are high. So
Yep.
I think your question is already going to be answered, hopefully.
Okay.
You have a good letter on the back. So it indicates that they have been awarded $181,866 over 2 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have the ability to withdraw this? They've been selected as recipients to withdraw a year if you decide to.
After the year, is that, yes, because this contract is only for this year, even though they've been awarded for the whole 2 years. If the deliverables are not being met, then we can pull the,
So they understand that by being a recipient of the total amount, that they may not get the second year if they don't meet the
If they don't meet the deliverables.
deliverables, yes, they are aware of that.
And we have in the contract too, the agreement, we can separate at any point for 30 days, don't notice, if we feel that it's not being met. We do that for all of them, not just for them. We give notice, if something we feel like is not array, that we can stop at any point with proper 30-day notice.
So with ARPA, we have to be careful about the timing.
Correct.
That's why I'm asking that question. The second thing is that it refers to 2 positions. So I think we should be able to see exactly what those 2 positions get. With the $6 million that you're saying, I don't think we're interested in what they did overall. We're interested in what these 2 people did with our money.
Okay, what they're gonna do, okay.
Yes.
And you will like this information is sent to the whole team?
Yeah.
Okay.
We, so again, what I'm doing is drawing the motion pending our receipt
Of the
that.
information, okay, we can do that. Thank you.
And you can share our concern that we want to make sure that, people are being served when they need the services, and it's effective.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so with that, I will draw my motion for approval.
Thank you.
Are you making a motion to?
And I move that we table this until we receive the requested information.
So motion on the floor, may I have a second?
Second.
Been moved and second, all in favor of tabling this Edgewater Health funding issue?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. It's tabled.
Mr. President, Attorney Molina, revised, So, I'm gonna be honest, what was the love of arts we did? Okay. I didn't have enough coffee today. All right, so, Mr. President, discussing the First Amendment to the grant funding agreement with Gary Harm Reduction Corporation. This is for the purpose of correcting the funding sources. So, any previous exhibits that were attached to the original contract are stricken and replaced by the exhibits attached hereto, which accurately reflect that $5,000 of the funding is coming from the city ARPA fund, and $20,000 of the funding is coming from the city's opioid funding account. So with that, I move that we approve the contract with Gary Harm Reduction to reflect $5,000 is gonna be paid from ARPA and $20,000 is gonna be paid from the city's opioid funding account.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. May I see the document just for reference, please? For the amendment of the grant for Gary Harm Reduction Corporation. Any discussion on this motion? May we have roll call for approval, please?
Member Green? Member Allen?
Yes.
Secretary Morgan?
Yes.
Vice President Dumas?
Yes.
President Suggs?
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 0 no.
With a vote of 5 yes and 0 against, the amended grant funding for Gary Harm Reduction Corporation has been approved.
That concludes correspondence from the law department.
Item 6 on our agenda, unfinished business. Any unfinished business to go before the Board of Public Works and Safety? Item 7, new business. Any new business?
Yes.
Yes. Please. 10:30.
Okay, so I believe there will be a public notice, official public notice posted, or if not already posted downstairs. But we will have an emergency meeting on Friday. Special meeting, sorry. Special meeting of the Board of Public Works on Friday to review tabled contracts from the previous Board of Works meeting. So that meeting will be at 10:30 a.m. On Friday,
May 2nd.
May 2nd, in this location. Again, it's only those agenda items that were previously tabled, and these are the contracts for lawn services, right? Lawn services for the city of Gary.
Lawn services or equipment.
And equipment, purchase of equipment, that's what I thought, yes, yeah, and the purchase of other equipment by the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional new business? Online, could you please confirm whether or not we have anyone in queue for public comment?
No, we don't.
As I noticed, the list here in the room is empty. I would like to open the floor for anyone who would like to have public comment.
I just want to say it's the first time in a long time we haven't seen Mr. Purnell. And, but yeah, he was at the Mayor's State of the City yesterday, and I just want to note that the State of the City, I thought, was excellent. I thought the mayor and the communication department did a spectacular job. And it's very hopeful and optimistic and just great thing. And if people haven't seen it, they should go online and rewatch the recording of it, whether it's on Facebook or the city's website.
I concur, and we'll hold other comments till after we're off record. Yeah, okay, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. It's been moved.
Second.
And seconded. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your attendance.